please welcome the incredible Danielle Wiebe.
Thank you so much, Renee. I am so thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're talking about events and attending events, hosting events, because the world is just craving this now.
100%. Events are coming back in full force, I have to say. And it has been such a wild ride with the last 3 years, or 4 years, I guess, more, almost 5. I feel like people are just ready for it. They're ready for the in-person connection.
5 years since the thing happened.
I know. We don't want to talk about it, but it's like, I know. It's crazy.
It's so funny. I see this like meme on TikTok. Even my kids joke around about this, how a kid that was born in 2017, I'm like, is 3 years old.
Yes.
They're like, no. They're like 7 or 8.
It's insane. It's insane. Yeah, absolutely.
Crazy. So it's been a slow start, but I'm seeing this too. So tell us like really quickly what it is that you do, and we'll just jump right in.
Yeah. So I build community and I have my own podcast. I have a community of my own. We host in-person events. We host virtual events. My whole thing is connecting women that own their own businesses. How can we connect, collaborate, support one another? And so we have a podcast that supports doing that. We have events that support doing that. And we also have an online program that helps women to connect and collaborate and build community around their brand.
I love it. What's it called?
Business Babes Collective.
Business Babes. We're babes.
Yes.
It's like you get more babelicious as you lean into your greatness.
Exactly.
I notice this. I look in the mirror. It's like every time I do something really scary, I get better looking.
Totally.
I was actually telling this to, I think it was my human design coach yesterday. How I'm like, it's really fascinating how people actually physically look better when they start pursuing their passion.
Mm-hmm.
Like you want a facelift, go and do the things that you love to do.
So true. People can see it in your eye, like your eyes are more lit up. I totally believe that. Absolutely.
So how long have you been doing this for?
It will be officially the business I have today will be 10 years. It technically will be 10 years in January. So
that's unheard of.
Yeah.
So you must have been like 12 years old when you started this then?
A lot of people say I look young. I have 2 kids too. People are like, wait, what? You have 2 kids?
Yeah.
So thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah. Clearly you're doing what you love to do because you still look very young.
Thank you. And I mean, yes, I have been doing this. I mean, I've been really passionate about events and in the entrepreneurial world, we'll say, basically since 2012, I would say. And really it was like this thought of, as I started to kind of become a freelancer and work with other brands, and I always worked from home. And so for me, I felt really lonely, and I loved the flexibility of working from home. I loved the fact that I got to own my own schedule. I saw my mom running her own business, and I actually worked for my mom right out of university. So I saw the benefits of that. So I knew that that's what I wanted, but I think I didn't recognize how lonely that would be and how challenging it would be to be, I'm pretty self-motivated, but I think it was just like, you get into this habit of just being in your PJs all day, working from your bed. It's just not a healthy lifestyle, right? And so for me, I was like, how do I get out there? How do I meet other people that are similar to me? So I would go to these events and networking things, and you'd go to them, and I'd be one of the only women in the room, and I'd definitely be one of the youngest in the room. And I thought, okay, I'm sure there's other people like me. I need to just go find them. So that's kind of like how it started.
Yeah, and you have to put on normal pants and leave your house for this to happen. Let me tell you about something super magical that happened the last couple of days. So I have a spiritual therapist I've been working with forever, and now a human design coach, because I'm just like all about this. Yeah. And I've been working with my spiritual therapist for a few years now, and we went through a lot of muck together. This week, officially, she's like, you've graduated to the newer level, like a next level of enlightenment. And she's like, the Empress has arrived. So the Empress embodies all 4 queens, if you know anything about tarot, which is kind of like the ruler of the kingdom. And I was like, oh, do I get a like crown for this? That would be really cool. Anyway, which is also a crazy amount of responsibility. So she's like, you have to reward yourself for this. You need to do something for yourself, buy yourself a gift that symbolizes this next level. And the first thing that came to my mind was a plant, a large plant for my dining room because it gets a lot of sun. And there's a fake plant in there now. I'm like, we need something real. So there's a cool local plant shop in Kelowna. I forget what it's called. It's close to my house. And I've been there a couple times. I met the owner. His name's Matt. And I met him at another event. And this was probably over a year ago. Never even thought about the idea of a plant until she said this. This was Monday. We're now Wednesday. Last night I go to an event. And it's for this new, like, it's called Opal. So it's for this new, like, healing place for Reiki and meditation and stuff. And who's there is one of the guests, the owner of this plant shop. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? And we started chatting and I tell him the story. And he's like, you know what? We actually have a couple large plants and there's one that might work for you. It's a cinnamon plant. And I'm like, gosh, I don't even know what that looks like. And I don't know anybody that owns a cinnamon plant. So I go and I research the meaning of a cinnamon plant and it's about abundance and healing. And I was like, okay, now. So anyways, the point of the story is that if I didn't go to this event, because I don't usually do these types of events, if I didn't physically show up, I would not have been introduced to the idea of having a cinnamon plant as the gift for me and my next level of enlightenment. And this is one example of a billion things that happen when you physically show up in a room.
So true, because I think we're inundated so much online these days. Obviously, we know this. We are bombarded every day with thousands and thousands of messages. And, you know, I mean, I love Instagram as much as the next person. It's like, but it does get really overwhelming and it is isolating because obviously we are seeing such small snippets of people's journeys, of people's lives. And, you know, we were just talking before we hit record about, you know, Alex's event that I was supporting with. And of course, like from the, you know, outside, it's like, oh man, so much FOMO and all these things. Right. And I think being in physical rooms, and it doesn't even have to be these like massive events. Yes, you should go to those because they're awesome and they're so fun. But it could be going to a coffee with a friend or a dinner with a group of entrepreneurs, or it could be a little workshop with like, you know, 5 or 10 other people. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. And just like getting in the room with other people, especially who are going through the same things as you are, there's nothing like it. Like there really is nothing like being together. And I think that's why I am seeing such a huge emphasis on events right now, because we're all like slowly coming out of our cocoons from the last several years. And people are getting a little bit more comfortable being in person because for so long we weren't. And it's really cool to see people's breakthroughs that they have in person. They could learn the same things, or they could, you know, learn from the same people, hear this exact same thing, but you hear it online and you hear it in person, it hits totally differently because you're in a different state, right? So
it's like dating.
Yeah.
You can date online all you want, but you don't want a relationship that's purely based online.
Exactly.
You want to be with the person.
Exactly.
There's something energetically, there's something about, and also it's like when you have these online relationships, they're usually scheduled for like 30 to 1 hour intervals. But when you do the networking and you connect with somebody, it's like, even though the event's over, maybe you go and you do have coffee after or dinner, there's still that dead air where it forces you to go deeper with the person. Like even last night, I only knew one person when I walked into that room. I didn't even know the woman who owned the business. So I like went straight to the person I know, asked her all the questions. And then I was like, walked up to this group of women. There's, I don't know, 4 or 5 of them. And I was like, hi, I'm Renee. What's your name? And yeah, it takes courage to do that. Even me as a 43-year-old woman who have had my fair share of being in events and rooms where I didn't know anybody, it takes courage to go and do that.
It does. Yeah.
But it just changes everything, meeting these people in real life.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think another thing too that we often don't really think about with like that in-person connection is when we're online with someone and we're building a relationship, and yeah, maybe we're on a Zoom call or we're getting interviewed on a podcast, whatever that looks like, we are on the whole time. And there's not that opportunity to build connection in those like white spaces when maybe you're not even like talking with one another, but you're sitting beside somebody and they're not talking, you're not talking, but you're just like with one another. And you really do build such a stronger bond when you're just doing things together, if that makes sense, or you're experiencing something together, because there's a lot of pressure when you're building that connection online with like, well, everything I say has to be valuable, or everything that I say, or, even just like you're very conscious of how you look, or all of these things, right, that we have when we're online. And so I think we are, even if we can show up, if we've been doing this for a long time and we can show up very vulnerably online, there's still that aspect of we're not as present maybe, or able to be as real as we possibly can until we're in person.
It's true.
Yeah.
And also, most people are always surprised about something about you when you meet in person. Like for me, I'm 6 feet tall. So people are like, oh my God, I didn't realize you were this tall. Totally. Which is kind of like an icebreaker. So there's two like core questions I want to ask you. One is about attending events, and the other one is about hosting events. Mm-hmm. So when I think about attending events, I know one of the most nerve-wracking thing is to be in a room full of people you don't know, whether it's a big or small room. And maybe you're there with somebody. Like I always say, if you're nervous about going, go with somebody that you know, with the intention of releasing yourself from them.
Yeah.
What are some key, and I hate the word networking, but what are some key socializing tips that you can share with the listeners who are otherwise terrified of going up to strangers?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I always think about what could you do to sort of just break the ice? And it could be, I think a lot of people just overthink it as well. Like it could be so simple. Like it could be going up to a table and being like, is anyone sitting here? Because I have nowhere else to sit. Or like it could be something so basic, or is the coffee good here, or like is the coffee ready, whatever. Like it literally could be anything that could just like break the ice for that conversation to be opened up. And then asking just like follow-up questions. And I think the more you can practice this as well, the better you get at it. And so I feel like my challenge to anyone listening would be like, next time you're at a coffee shop or a restaurant or anywhere in public where maybe you have the opportunity to say something to someone that's near you, and normally you would shy away from that because you're like, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know if that person wants to talk to me or whatever it is. So like challenge yourself to say something. It could be also a compliment. A compliment is a great icebreaker. If someone's wearing some really like amazing shoes, like compliment them on those, or like, hey, where'd you get that jacket? That's super cute. So anything that you can do to just break that ice, I think the better. And then you can open up that conversation for more. And don't worry if the first few like back and forth, things that you say to each other are awkward, because they might be. It might start out slightly awkward. And that's okay. I'm kind of an awkward person too. Sometimes I say that all the time in my events. I'll like get up on stage and I'll be like, so don't worry about being awkward, because I'm awkward too. I'll say good morning when it's actually afternoon all the time. This happens to me constantly, right? People have to correct me. I say awkward things all the time, but I'm being myself and I'm being my authentic, self when I'm in that moment. And so people don't want to build relationships with other people that they think are perfect. They actually want to build relationships with people who have flaws that are just like them. So the more you try to be perfect, or the more you try to say the perfect thing, the less you're actually going to be able to connect with someone. So take the pressure off of yourself, because when you say something to someone else that maybe is a little bit awkward, or you like just poke fun at yourself or whatever it is, they're going to be more attracted to that.
Cool. So I have a couple icebreaker things that I just wrote down. So first off, the best thing, and you already touched on this, the best way to do an icebreaker with somebody you don't know is compliment them on something. And there's always something to compliment them on something, because there's nothing better than receiving a compliment. And it's really important to get their name and repeat their name 3 times. Don't say like Danielle, 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 but when you ask those first few questions, say it with their name. I'm somebody that needs to visualize somebody's name, so I will actually have to turn around and spell it down, or else I won't remember. You want to ask them 3 to 5 questions too before talking about yourself. Like last night when I was at that event networking, there was 2 women, one of which I knew. We spent like a good 20, 25 minutes chatting, and I asked them all the questions. They didn't ask me any question.
Right.
At all. But guess what? Their memory of the networking was like, Renee is such a nice person.
Yeah.
Like she's very, and they don't know crap about me.
But they like
But I know a lot about them. People love to hear their names, and they love when you ask questions. The other thing too is to be relatable and relevant. All right. So like you think about, if you go into a room and you're like the $1 million entrepreneur talking to somebody who's just starting out, that person starting out probably doesn't feel like there's anything they relate to. But if you're the person asking questions, is you got to find that way of being relatable. Sometimes it comes from the compliment. Sometimes it comes from the reason why you're at this event, or you're drinking the same coffee. And once you get through this, it's like you're instantly into a conversation, unless they're awkward or busy and have to leave. And it just flows from there.
So good. Another thing that I was thinking about, because I got the opportunity to do that this weekend because I was supporting a friend in her event. Normally I'm hosting my own events, so it's challenging to have those like small little moments with people. And so what I really challenged myself with is, how can I serve a few key people in the room? Because you can't necessarily have that like really deep connection with everyone. But if there's people in the room and maybe they look nervous, or maybe they're looking around, or you notice something, going up to them and saying like, hey, how are you doing? Or like, can I get you anything? Or like, do you want me to grab you a water? I'm gonna go get a water. Can I get some for you too? Like, making them feel like seen and appreciated and noticed is one of the most powerful things you can do to someone, for someone. And so thinking about that as well when you're attending events, it doesn't have to be hosting events or supporting an event, is just like being generous, being kind. Like, how can you go in and serve? Because I think sometimes we have the mindset when we're attending an event, like, okay, I need to connect with like 10 people and make sure like I'm networking for my business. If you have that mindset, first of all, you're going to go in super stressed out. You're probably not going to have fun. And then also the connections you do make are not going to feel genuine, because you have this like ulterior kind of motive and
it's exhausting.
It is. It's exhausting. And I feel like that's kind of the old style of like networking, is like every event needs to bring me this many like leads or whatever it is. And that is just not how I approach events at all. But the cool thing is that every single time I've been to an event, either as an attendee or hosted an event, there are multiple ripple effects from each one of those events, because of just the genuine connections and the genuine relationships that have been built from those events.
Oh, it's crazy. Like I talk about this example that was the mastermind I went to last December, and in the room was like big names like Cody Sanchez, and Jim Quick, and oh my gosh, I'm like Michael Hyatt, Jenna Kutcher, Amy Porterfield, Bonnie Christine. And these are people who I've admired for such a long time. And I followed them online, and I've, connected with them, but they never followed me back.
Right. Yeah.
They never and I get it. They're busy and they have a lot of people reaching out to them. But the moment I got to meet them, it's like, oh, this woman is legit. Like you can sense the authenticity when you meet in person. And now I'm friends with some of these people, of which I have their phone numbers and we text message. That wouldn't have happened had I not ever met them in person.
Of course.
So it's like you have to grow your business. It's fundamentally important for you to put on some pants or skirt, whatever, and get out the door at least once a month. Like I see some people, they're out weekly. It's like, maybe that's a little bit too much, but everybody knows who they are, and that's great.
Totally.
But like, we really got to be forcing ourselves to get out there.
Absolutely.
So let's go to the next question about hosting events, because this is like your jam. And you also helped a really cool woman this past weekend crush her event as well. Why is this important in business to host events?
Oh man, such a great question. I think the main reason why in-person events are so important for your business, and again, we can go into actual tacticals, because I think when people hear you should host an event for your business, they automatically go to the 200 or 300 or 500 person room. And of course, if you do something like that, 100% it's going to have huge ripple effects in your business, but you do not have to start there. I did not start there. Most people don't start there. So I think Renee's like,
I'm like, I'm like 300 person. But listen, this is not my first event that I'm hosting. We used to host events in Toronto that started with, this is how it started. We'll come back to you in a sec. It was kind of like, hey, do you want to meet on a patio on a Friday and let's just jam? Like, we'll just chat. And there was like 4 people. Exactly. Next month there was 10. The next month there was like 10 to 15. And we used to call them Partio Fridays because we'd go on a patio in the summer. That evolved to our last event a couple years later. Before I left and moved away, we had 400 people show up. This was free to attend. Because we would attract all the startups in Toronto when I used to live there. There were bankers, investment bankers, investors outside lined up the street to come in to our event because we had curated such a great group.
It's incredible. And exactly what you just said, because when I started hosting these little pop-up events, I don't know if you remember, I mean, I think it's still actually pretty active, is the website meetup.com. So I literally started a random meetup group and just like wanted to meet other entrepreneurs in the city. And our first event, I think we had like, I don't know, 6 people or 10 people, whatever it was. And then just like literally snowballed from there. And people would be like, when's your next event? When's your next event? And so it really can start super small, or you can even just start like, hey, asking 2 other entrepreneurs who you admire or that you've already connected with, maybe going to another event, like, hey, let's meet up for coffee and do like a little co-working session. It could start like that. It doesn't matter. The thing that's important is building a community around your brand. And I talk about this a lot and how important this is, because people are not interested in purchasing your products and services. They're actually interested in being like involved with your brand. And I think it's like, even just, we've changed as people, I think, over the past several years, and we really deeply desire connection and community. And so if you are just trying to build a brand by just like pushing your products and services out there, and you're not actually focusing on building real relationships, real connections, creating community, making your customers, your clients, your people feel like they belong in some ways, they're probably not going to stay. They're probably not going to stick around. And so I know so many amazing brands that do this. And by the way, even if you have a product-based business, you should be doing this as well. There's a really awesome company called Smart Sweets. And I don't know if you know Smart Sweets, but
I do.
Yeah. So
we eat those all the time.
Oh my gosh, they're amazing. And Tara, she actually spoke at our last event. And so she built this company, and we were talking about like because I said, how did you build such an amazing community like around your brand? Because really, you look at their social media And people feel like they're a part of Smart Suites. They don't just feel like they're customers. They feel like they're a part of it. And so it's just amazing. And she said, honestly, when we started, it was like, let's make each person feel so seen, so important, like they're like they're our friends. And let's make them feel so included in what we're doing and what we're building and the mission of our brand. And I think that's so key. So obviously you can do this online, but then taking it a step further, and I know Smart Suites, like they've supported a lot of our events. They're very involved in community in general and events and things like that. So whatever your branded, whatever your business is, how can you get involved in events or host your own and bring those people together? Because when you can connect your customers and your potential customers together, you're going to grow so much faster because your current customers will sell for you. So they'll be talking about how great you are, or your brand is, or your products or services are for you. And it's you don't actually have to do the selling yourself. And I think I've just seen so many ripple effects from the people that we've worked with our events and hosting our own events, people becoming business besties and then like launching a business together. It's really, really cool. And also, just from a personal perspective, it's incredibly rewarding to introduce people together.
It's like
so rewarding.
People who are your biggest cheerleaders inherently want to see you succeed. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you don't even have to have the best product or service. Mm-hmm. It's like, they like you.
Yeah.
And you said it best, and I paraphrase, people aren't interested in your product or service. They're invested in you.
Yeah.
Nowadays, more so than ever, people are visiting about pages. They're like, okay, there are table stakes to certain industries. Like, we'll talk about teas. The table stake is that, is it fair trade organic? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going to drink a tea. It better have that. Mm-hmm. But then it's like, okay, here's a million companies that already do that. So who is the person behind the brand now? Mm-hmm. Are they involved in their community? Are they genuine? Do I like them? Do I have some sort of connection? Because I would rather spend $5 more on a box of tea from somebody that I like versus, $5 less on a tea that might taste a little bit better. It's crazy. It's crazy what we'll do for the people that we support. And that's the same of what people do for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think too, like people want to align with brands and businesses that align with their own values now. And I think that if we can show up in a way instead of hiding, and I know the first few years, I mean, I hosted and built community as my business. Like that is what my business does. And I was still trying to hide behind my brand. Like I would have, other people in the photos and all my, I didn't want to be forward facing. I think I was just nervous. I think I was scared of what people were going to think. I was scared of, I don't know, I had a lot of fears when I first started. And I think the more I recognized that people needed to see who was behind the brand, like you said, who was the person putting on these events, because they want to align with you. What they want to know, does this person align with my values? Does this person, what do they believe in? Like, do they have a family? People are just curious, I think too. Like they're just curious about those things. They want to know. And the more that we can show up authentically and the more that we can bring a community around us that share similar values and share similar ideas and, our support, like you said, the faster we can actually grow our businesses, because they'll tell their friends who will tell their friends who will tell their friends. We can only do so much on our own. But when we build a community around our brand, they all have communities of our own. All of our customers and clients have all communities of their own. And so if we're just only relying on ourselves to get the word out, it's going to be a super slow growth for us.
Well, it's like raising a kid. You can't do it alone.
Yeah, 100%.
You can't do it alone because you think about all the people involved in your child's well-being, like your school teachers, educators, daycare, you name it. It's like, it's impossible to do every single thing alone. I'm sure there are mothers especially out there that have, but they probably feel depleted because we aren't meant to do this alone.
No.
We aren't meant to parent alone or do business alone. It's not the point.
No.
And there's definitely no reward for somebody who just plows through by themselves. Like I remember Dan asked me once, he's like, if we lost it all, like lost all the things that we have, our possessions, would you be mad at me? And I said, well, it depends on what you did. And if you're still nice to me.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't care. Like I could live in a tent. We'll figure it out. But here's what I know. That would never happen.
Yeah.
And it would never happen because we've built the community that wouldn't allow for that to happen.
Totally
there
true.
Would be
oh my gosh.
Spare rooms opened up, extra cars given to us. Like that's the thing. When you are intentional about building community, and not for selfish reasons, but because you actually want to connect the right people. You want to see people succeed. It doesn't matter what happens. They will be there to help you or save you or to do the favor that you've always wanted to ask, but you never did.
Yeah.
And the moment you get through the fear of asking for help is when great things start to happen. That's abundance. And women are the worst. The women are the worst in this, that they're not worthy. They don't feel worthy of receiving.
Yeah.
They don't feel like they deserve it. Like someone sends you flowers because they're thinking of you, like a good friend. Like, I love you so much, Danielle. Thank you so much for everything you've done. If you didn't do the work, you would be like, oh, wow, I don't deserve this. But here's the thing. The moment we resist receiving from somebody else becomes an insult to that person.
100%.
Like when they say, oh no, you shouldn't have done that. It's like, okay, but I spent $10,000 on this thing and it took me 70 hours to create. And now you're telling me I should not have done this. Like, no, what you say, someone gives you a compliment, someone sends you a gift, you say, thank you. That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And you smile. And then the more you get good at this, then the more you can receive.
Yeah.
Because we all deserve a level of success that we've always dreamed of, a level of health and love that we've always dreamed of. And it just means that sometimes we got to do the scary things. And one of them is receiving.
It is hard. I feel like I've been on a journey of that over the last 10 years of being able to receive. And it's so funny because I was literally just having this conversation with someone in our community about this yesterday, because we were talking about actually specifically for events, getting sponsors for events. And she was saying, like I've had emails come in inquiring about it. And then I freak out and I don't respond to them right away because I'm like self-sabotaging.
Oh, no.
And I think it's so funny because as we start building our businesses, we realize where we need to grow and where we need to work on, like you said, receiving, and whether that be gifts or whether that be money or whether that be opportunities, because maybe we don't feel like we deserve it, or we feel like we're not ready, or we don't know what the next step is. There's so many like crazy thoughts that come up in our mind. And I think what I've realized too is, there's things that I've become very comfortable with. And so, I think a lot of people think that I just, don't have fear around any of it, but it's not true. When there are those really big opportunities that come, I find myself reverting back into that, like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. And it's like that self-sabotage. I feel like we don't notice it unless we're really aware of it. And so it could be just even not getting to our emails because we saw something in there that's like an opportunity that we actually really want to do, but we're like terrified at the exact same time. And we procrastinate on even getting back to it because we're not even sure.
Because we think we have to be perfectly ready for it. I actually just posted something about this on LinkedIn today. But that's a lie. Ready is a lie.
Yeah.
And also it's like, you've been wanting this forever. And there it is in your inbox. And it's God saying, here it is.
Yeah.
This is what you've been asking for. Yeah. And all of a sudden we're avoiding that conversation because we don't feel like we deserve it. But what's happening is we're just pushing against our upper limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
It's like that internal thermostat. right? It's like, I only deserve $100,000 a year because that's all I feel like I'm worth. So anything more than that, I will throw grenades into my business and into my life so that brings the temperature down a little bit.
So true.
As opposed to being like, awesome, let's go, next level, here I come.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so real. So real.
And that's like the same with hosting events. Like, I would say, in the grand scheme of like the marketing things we could do for our business, hosting an event has got to be one of the most risky things, especially when you're looking at like hotel room blocks, signing contracts at venues, signing contracts with caterers.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of risk at like the front part, the front loaded part of the event, with the hopes of you, like, fingers crossed, that people show up. That sponsors show up.
Yeah.
But I know that if you believe in the idea of what it is you're producing with conviction, that they do show up.
Yeah.
And it can come from the most unlikely places too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, when people hear, and it's so funny because, like, obviously I've been hosting events for 10 years. So I think I've realized over the past, several years that I've been really, like, encouraging other people to do it in their own business, is people have so much fear around it. But I do think it's because they're thinking of that, big, massive event. And like I said, I think those are incredible. And I think that, if that's on your heart and that's something that's like a dream of yours, 100% you should go for it. But I think also it might be a good idea to test the waters with your community and try to just host something super small, see how it goes, and then build on that. Like, I think a lot of the time we think of this goal that we have and we just assume it's like an all or nothing. Whereas no, it's actually something that we can build up to and, like, build into. And so that's what I would recommend for anyone who's maybe thinking about starting to build community with their brand or host an event. What feels easy that you could literally do, like, next week or like 2 weeks from now? Like, what's something where you could literally just do it? And, like, I was talking to someone, they were saying, yeah, you could just, like, book a reservation at a restaurant and just invite people to come. You don't have to sell tickets. You could just, like, invite people to come out for dinner with you. And it could be as simple as that, just to prove to yourself that you can do it, and then build into that discomfort of asking people if they want to come with you, because I think that's also, it's vulnerable to host an event because all these feelings come up from maybe, like, when we were really little, of like, is anyone going to come to my birthday party? Right. Like, or there's, like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh my gosh, like, no one's going to show up. And it doesn't matter how far along in business we are either, we're still going to have those feelings. I know a lot of people that I work with, they've been in business for years. They've got very large online communities and they're still worried people are not going to show up for their in-person events. So it doesn't matter. I think also knowing that your fears are not unique to you.
No.
Everyone else also feels those fears, and it's very, very real.
Yeah, the simplicity of it, because simplicity scales. Last February, so we have in the mountains out here in Kelowna, we have a place up at Big White, so a really cool, iconic ski hill. And my friends that I'd met at other events from the States, from Minnesota to Jersey to Idaho, wanted to come out here and see the space, but also explore the opportunity to ski or snowboard. And I was like, yeah, why don't you guys come out, we'll stay at our place, you can sleep 10, and I'll invite somebody else and we'll just put a little mastermind together. Like, we'll ski in the mornings and mastermind in the afternoon. And we called it the Mountaintop Mastermind.
Yes.
And the cool thing about it is the only thing they had to pay for was them getting here. Yeah. And then we split the cost of food. There was no mastermind fee of like $10,000. And we all had hot seats. We went to the table and we just brought one issue in our life that was affecting us, whether it was personal or business. It was so successful that women left that 2-3 day thing and went off and executed on the one thing that they were pushing up against. And like, it just opened up so much opportunity.
So good.
And I was like, let's do this again. So then I was at the Powerhouse Women event in Scottsdale, Arizona this August, and I tagged on an extra day and I encouraged my one friend who was also at the Mountaintop Mastermind to rent an Airbnb that could host like 5 or 6 women. And we did another mastermind.
Cool.
It was called the Desert Heat Mastermind.
Love it.
So women were staying a little extra. I was like, come, let's go. We have one issue to discuss. We'll go around the table. We each get an hour-long hot seat. Same thing happened. Like
So good.
women were just cracked open and like they went and they just explored new possibilities. And these were life-changing moments.
So
We're
good.
doing it again. This time, more formal. We're hosting it in Tulum, Mexico.
So fun.
We have 10 women coming in. Same thing. All they have to pay for is their accommodations and their logistics. And we're at this huge villa. Same thing. This one's like 4 or 5 days. And there's a little more involved, like some sound healing and meditation. And this one's called the Oceanside Mastermind.
Cool.
And I'm going to do it again. And whether or not this turns into something that becomes more formal, I don't know. And I don't care because I'm getting so much from it. And the caliber of women that are coming to these events, like I'm butting heads against women who actually do this for a living and who charge $10,000 for masterminds. And they're the ones coming to this event.
Cool.
So it doesn't have to be perfect or polished. It doesn't have to have an agenda because there is none.
Yeah.
It's just the intention and the act of doing is like
so good.
all you got to do to get started.
It's so good. It's so good. And I think it's, and I think sometimes we also think about hosting events. And so we think about all the events that we've personally been to, and we think it has to look exactly like that. It doesn't. It could look like whatever you want it to look like. Like it could really be anything. And, I've seen people do like little, I don't know, like pajama party things. Like, it's just like, like create your own, like whatever feels fun for you, whatever feels easy for you. And it could be at it could be at a place that you already have. Like, how cool is it that the first one, you're just like, hey, I have this opportunity where you can come and just like be a part of this here. That's amazing. If you have something like that, or even, you've got a kitchen table and you want to bring a couple of people and make your own charcuterie board and get some refreshments and then invite some people. Like, it does not have to be complicated.
Yeah, you could even do like cooking classes, like secure 4 spots at a cooking class and go. 100%. And I really encourage you also to invite people you've never met before. Mm-hmm. And the easy way to find some of these people is you open up Instagram and then you go to accounts or hashtags and you just search your city or your area.
Yes.
And those people show up.
You know what's really funny, Renee?
What?
That is exactly how I built my business is so we were hosting these events, right? Local events. Vancouver, Canada is where I live. And I would go onto Instagram. So the reason why we grew the community so quickly was because before I started this community, I was supporting other businesses with their social media. And back then it was like Facebook and then Instagram like just came onto the picture kind of thing. And so I was like, why is no one using Instagram for their business? It's crazy. Started hosting these events and I would literally go into the hashtags like Vancouver entrepreneur or like Vancouver, like photographer, Vancouver. And that's how I found all of my people that come to my events, my sponsors, my supporters, everything. That's how I found everyone that I didn't have any community before I started. I knew 0 people in business. I was by myself trying to host these random events on Meetup. And so I love that because it's just so simple.
It is. And you know what? That's how
easy.
I get all the guests on my show.
I love
That's how I connected with you.
Yes.
Because here's the thing is email is not dead, but people are just so over email.
Yeah.
And a lot of great things can happen in Instagram DMs.
Yeah. And voice notes. I love a good voice note because people can feel your excitement.
The voice note's one thing.
Yeah.
So if you have a physical location, a coffee shop, a restaurant, or a shop, and you're selling things, brick and mortar, I am shocked at how many people don't actually reach out to like the lower hanging fruit influencers in their area by direct message.
100%.
Like there's all these places that I only discovered because someone invited me to an event or someone suggested them. But the owners of these places should be reaching out and being like, hey, Renee, we serve acai bowls. I saw that you like these things because you were in California. have you come in and tried it yet?
Mm-hmm.
We'll give you one free for your son. Like, it is not hard.
It's not hard
to get people, and they just don't do it.
Yeah.
They don't do it.
Yeah.
And there's one company in Kelowna. They're called the Stitcher Sisters. They are a 9 and 11-year-old sisters who sew things and beautiful things. They are so cute. When I told them this advice nonstop, not only are they reaching out to me in DMs, they're tagging me in all these things. So I get the notification. And I'm like, they're little hustlers.
Yes.
It is adorable. And I was like, hey guys, here's an example of how to do it. And like, it just shocks me that more people aren't doing this. Yeah. Okay, this is awesome. Now you've given me so much more hope and inspiration for the event that I'm hosting on June 12th in Kelowna, British Columbia. It's called the Pink Skirt Project. A lot of details to come, but it is for women entrepreneurs. We're expecting 300 women. We got some really great speakers lined up and some surprises. But this was a breath of fresh air, knowing that all my feelings are valid because you said
They're
so.
All valid.
Yes. I appreciate it. So maybe you'll come out and you'll bring Alex Catoni with you.
Yes.
I do have one last question for you.
Absolutely.
When I ask you what it means to be a wild woman, what is that to
you? My gosh. For me, it's letting go of everything that other people have said about you, or you've thought that they've thought about you, or maybe that you think of yourself, and just going for those really, really, really scary dreams that are on your heart. And even when it's not perfect, going for it anyways and taking those like small steps forward, even if it's super messy and even if it's terrifying.
I love it. Those are the best first steps.
Yeah.
Just do it. Just go. Stop thinking about it. Perfect is a lie. Ready is a lie. Okay. But you're perfect. So where can people go online to find you?
Oh my goodness. I think honestly, right now, the best place for you to go is probably my Instagram. Just Dani Living Life, Dani with an I, Living Life. And just send me a message and just connect, because I'd love to just connect with you. If you have questions about events, feel free to ask in my DMs. I get so much joy from sharing like ideas and thoughts and advice for people. So feel free to DM me and ask me. And I've got a podcast called Business Babes Collective. And so you can find me there, those two places.
I love it. And we'll put that in the show notes.
Thank you.
But Danielle, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Renee. Thanks for having me. This was such a fun convo.